that top 15, 16, 17, 18, I guess, but ranked defense. That'll be probably just enough for them to get into the playoffs, you think, and make a pretty good push. What do you think? What do you think as far as who they brought in, who they still had from last season that has to really step up? Also, I mean, I know Gus Bradley has a lot to do with it, and you know his schemes and whatnot, but the players have to step up, right? I mean, regardless of whatever the call is, the players got to execute. Who do you think that really has to step up? Like, who, 1, 2, or 3, 4 players of that defense?
There's no question, because like you said, the coach, ultimately it's going to come down to the
it's going to come down to the players. They got to execute it.
Right. And you know, going back to when that job was open, and I talked to some of the candidates that were interested in the job, and one of the questions I asked was, why are you interested in the job, other than the fact that it's a paying job, and obviously. But the feedback that I got was that cupboard's not there. That was the consensus of guys that I talked to that were interested in this job. Like, there's talent there. There's talent to work with, and I think there was an acknowledgement of that, and I think that's a good sign. It's something that you can't overlook, because it's easy, like we said, to just say get rid of everybody.
Right.
You can't do that. You have to. There was high draft picks and Cleve Farrell and Jonathan Abrams and Trayvon Mullen and Damon Arnett. You know, all throughout this defense, big money spent to Corey Littleton and Nick Bukowski. Trade for Corey Casey Hayward, but you know that came afterwards. But there's been a big investment that the Raiders have made in personnel. So there's talent there. Those guys were first-round picks and high picks for a reason. But now it's time for them collectively to turn the corner. And I think there's a couple of key guys that really have to.
Yeah, like who do you think? Obviously, Ngakwe, right? We brought him in. He's up front. But who do you think the guy up front has to compliment him? Well, let's start off with the front.
All right.
Who do you think has to compliment him? Because you already know everyone's going to give him that attention, right? You know, Ngakwe is going to probably, you know, they're going to schematically, you know, try to contain him.
Right.
So who do you think up front has to really have a great
Right.
has to be competitive?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that
For the Raiders to be competitive.
right. I think that Cleve Farrell has been trajecting forward for a while now. He's put together. Last year was a solid year for him. Before injuries, before COVID-19, he was grading out by Pro Football Focus and others as like a top 12 defensive end. I know he doesn't get the sexy numbers, Les, with the sacks and whatnot, and that's part of the game that he needs to improve on. But everything else, he was an efficient player. Was really strong against the run, set the edge. I think that his continued development is going to be huge. You know, I think the Raiders would love to see him be able to add more down to the pass rush.
You think he's going to have a pretty breakout season?
I think he can. I think there's a possibility of that. And I think what Ngakwe brings, and you're right, to me, he has to be who they thought he was. Listen. For a while now, even Corey Littleton last year, LaMarcus Joyner, Tyrell Williams, some of the investments that the Raiders have made in free agency these last few years, for whatever reason, hasn't panned out on the field. Corey Littleton looked like a different player last year compared to what I saw with the Rams.
When he was with the Rams.
You know, so Unique Ngakwe can't be another disappointment. He needs to bring it. He needs to be who they need him to be.
There can't be no excuses. Like you can't say like, oh well, you know, they schematically schemed against me.
He needs to get 10 plus sacks. Right. He needs to force the kind of turnovers that he typically does. And I think that alone is going to make a huge difference if he can be. But where I think his signing helps, though, is now in the depth, because we talked about Cleve Farrell. He's probably going to start a series on the edge, you know, in running downs, early downs. But I think in known passing situations, he's got that versatility where he's going to kick inside. And now you can put alongside him a Max Crosby, where it's Unique. Maybe Solomon Thomas or Jonathan Hankins or Quentin Jefferson. You got a bunch of options at that other defensive tackle position. Cleve Farrell, and then a Max Crosby.
Really good athleticism up front with that. Right?
Yeah. So being able to add to that depth and bring in or have a rotation where you're going to have a pretty good pass rusher on the field at all times. So I think Unique doing his thing, Max Crosby bouncing back from what was not a very good year for him last year. Cleve Farrell continuing to develop, and then getting production from the Solomon Thomases, the Darius Philons, who they brought in, Quentin Jefferson, Jonathan Hankins bringing him back. If that defensive line can be reliable, it sets the tone for everything else that happens behind.
And it keeps a lot of those offensive linemen off the linebackers.
Yes, exactly. So that frees up a guy like, I'm really interested. I think Corey Littleton is in line for a big bounce back season. I think
That'd be great.
Playing his role in a defense that's more conducive to what he does.
So do you believe that Corey Littleton will be the second level guy that needs to have a breakout year? You think it's
I think he's the guy that if he can get back to what he did with the Rams for the years that I was covering him, then it changes a lot. I think Jonathan Abram
on the defensive back level.
Yeah, as playing closer to the line of scrimmage, that box and safety position, being a force against the run, being an asset in pass rush, also minimizing his deficiencies as a pass cover, by asking him now to play a smaller portion of the field or defend a smaller portion of the field in the pass game. He needs to, I don't know. I don't know what Jonathan Abram is going to do this year. He's got all the talent in the world. Maybe the system, this position is going to unlock him, and if so, that's a game changer. But if he reverts back to kind of the inconsistent player that he's been, where far too often he's a liability rather than an asset, the Raiders are going to have
something to think about.
Yeah, something to think about in that position. Really curious to see Trayvon Moore at free safety, what he brings to the table, and then also Casey Hayward. So there's guys that, but here's the thing, we're talking about these guys, and
it's exciting, man.
Yeah, there's players,
great pieces, man.
Yeah, it's
really
not
great pieces.
Yes, exactly. It's not out of the realm to say these guys can play well. They should be able to play well, right? I mean, and if they do, then again, that's a game changer.
And that's what training camp's going to do, man. It's going to bring it all together. It seems like every year that's what training camp does, man. It brings all the pieces together, and that's how they're going to be successful.
Here's a big difference from last year. I know a lot of teams went through the same exact thing last year as the Raiders. We understand that, we get that. But I think for the Raiders specifically, having that off season under their belt, a real offseason under their belt, is really going to help. Remember, last year at this time, the first time John Gruden saw his team.
Going to have a season.
Yeah, right.
This time, they were still unsure.
Right. The first time John Gruden saw his team, eyeballing his team, was when training camp started. Gus Bradley talked about, not long ago in an interview, Gus Bradley talked about how this offseason, his defense got 2,000 reps. I know that's not full speed or anything like that, it's OTS, but it's like that foundation has now been set. I think it's going to make a huge difference, especially with that defense.
Yeah, and giving them time to do some installs too. The guys are getting here's your homework basically.
That's exactly what they were doing.
Familiarize themselves.
And then getting on the field and walking it out.
Being able,
made a huge difference. So
yeah, and speaking of that, because every player learns different, right?
Oh, yeah.
So being able to have OTAs. You're able to walk through some things, right? Not literally walk, but go run through.
You're not going full speed.
Right, yeah, you're not going full speed. You're getting the playbook. We're able to sit down in film room. So if you learn in a different way, whether it be visual, audio, or hands-on, it was able to capture you. And you know what? That kind of brings me up to something that you had mentioned to me about how Gus Bradley had mentioned about understanding players. So
yeah, he has a little phrase which I think is applicable to whatever you do in life.
Everything, right?
Whatever you do in life is as a teacher, as a coach, you need to learn the learner. You need to figure out how that student, player, coworker, whatever it is, absorbs information, and it's your job to figure that out as a coach, because you could be doing, you could just be stubborn and do it one way, and it might not even be registering with the player. It might be going in one ear and out the other. They're just not grasping it, and that doesn't make them not intelligent or anything like that. We all learn.
They learn differently. You're right.
Yeah. Some guys you put up on a chalkboard. Some guys you on video. You show it to them. Some guys you verbally tell them. Some guys you have to walk out onto the field,
Walk them through it.
and show it to them.
Yeah, it doesn't make that learning style is better than the other.
No, not at all.
Right, they're just a different way to learn.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. And the feedback that I've gotten from
And that's sad. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
That's sad because sometimes some coaches they don't get that.
Right.
You know what I mean? They just dismiss players. They're like, oh, this player,
Right.
he doesn't get it, man. I'm not saying the Raiders or any particular team, but some coaches I've seen that. Just coaches like, oh, that player is young, or they use words like that, right? Oh, he's slow. No, maybe you're teaching. Maybe it's because
you're a bad teacher.
Yeah. Maybe you're a bad teacher. You talk about that, and you talk about maybe have you been evaluated this player that how he learns and how you're teaching.
I remember covering. I'm not going to say who it was, but covering a team, and everything was cussing. The coaches were screaming and yelling and berating, and there's parts of our culture like put a foot in there, like it's not doing it. It's not doing anything. It's all for show. It's all. It really what it shows you is that person doesn't know how to teach. And it was funny because the very next year, a new staff came in, and it was positive, it was communication, it was encouragement, it was engagement, it was question asking, it was dialogue between players and coaches, and I just knew right away, like, this looks different. It feels different, and it showed on the field.
How did they do from that?
They made the playoffs that very next year. So it makes pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. And now you have different coaching, and then they go to the playoffs.
Right. So it shows you the importance of. We talked about players have to step up. There's no question about that. But I think, especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think the messaging, the communication, the teaching, all of that is gonna play into it. And the feedback that getting from players about Gus Bradley is like his first conversations, I know overwhelming conversations a lot of times, is just getting to know you. Like he wants to know you, and his whole thing is, and this is what good teachers talk about is once I get that part of it, once we develop a relationship and a trust, the X's and O's, that'll come. Now all of a sudden they're a little bit more open to hearing it and open-minded about it and more engaged because they know that you care about them as a person, not just as a player. So it'll be really interesting to see how that. And can't wait, honestly, to get on the field in these next couple of days.
Football, I can smell it.
Right?
Just like I can smell this food right in the
Oh yeah, it's
in the air.
At Old School Pizzeria on Craig Road.
On Craig Road, Old School Pizzeria.
Right off of 15
Road,
freeway.
man. Right off of 15, right. If football is in the air, man, I can smell it. And so, you know what? That's one last thing let's talk about. Is tomorrow, Raiders are reporting to training camp. And then the following day, I believe Wednesday is when they really start to practice.
Yes.
Tomorrow they're probably just going to be going through
equipment, check-in,
which is important. A lot of people
yeah.
they take that for granted. Like, oh, just take this. No, you got to make sure equipment check,
equipment check, all that.
Check.
Making sure everybody's in good physical condition. Keep in mind, Derek Carr, the quarterbacks, Marcus Mariota. We'll be talking about him in the future.
We'll see.
As far as having a role on this team, he's not the starting quarterback. Derek Carr's the starting quarterback. But there's ways to be able to tap into what Marcus Mariota
utilize everyone.
We'll be talking about that. Curious to see what it looks like in training camp.
Okay.
But Derek Carr, the quarterbacks, rookies reported on Saturday, so they've been in the building here for a couple of days now. But the veteran players, the bulk of the team, report tomorrow on Tuesday
and Wednesday.
And it's full on Wednesday.
Live bullet.
7:30 in the morning. As long as there's no monsoons.
No, the weather's actually been great, man. Like it's been overcast, but it's not as hot.
But it's been crazy rain.
No. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, it drizzled a little bit on Saturday.
There was winds and gusting winds and lightning. Yeah.
Maybe it's the guys welcoming the Raiders.
Right.
Maybe it's the guys.
I think there's
autumn wind. It's starting to come.
I think there's one more night of that supposedly.
It's letting the world know autumn wind is back, man.
And keep in mind that the Raiders do have an indoor facility, so if it starts getting hairy,
autumn wind for everybody else.
They can go in for cover.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, I'm glad to be here, man. Thank you for coming and showing up once again.
By the way, don't forget to check us out on AM 5, AM 570. That's my Los Angeles station I used to work for. Raider Nation Radio, 9:20 a.m. here locally. You can also
Between 4 to 6 p.m.
4 to 6 p.m. today. The next couple days will be 4 to 5, only because it's a baseball game.
Okay.
The Aviators, the AAA team here in Las Vegas, are playing earlier.
So 4 to 5 p.m. this week.
Monday, Tuesday, and then 4 to 6 the rest of the week. You can listen live on Raiders.com. You can listen live on LVSportsNetwork.com. If you're not in town, but if you are in town, 9:20 a.m. Raider Nation Radio.
And tune in because there's going to be a lot of important stuff that Vinny's going to talk about. You know, it's training camp. You know, it's starting to sharpen the sword, right? There's going to be some guys who's going to, you know, Vinny's going to know firsthand who's looking good, who's not looking good, who's in shape, and you know, so on and so forth. Who looks like it's going to be the starting 11 on defense, and so like how Vinny had mentioned, you know, front Ngakwe and Lee Farrell, linebackers Littleton is going to have a great year. We're going to see what Abram does. You know, he's going to have a great year as well, and Trayvon Murray, you know, because the corners look like they're going to be set. So.
And you can also read everything over at Vegas Nation, VegasNation.com on the internet. Vegas Nation is the app. It's the Las Vegas Review Journal, the local paper here in town. So this was cool. Can't wait to get back. Oh yeah,
man.
That's right. Yep. You know, because we're sponsored by tequila and rum. So that was my gift to Les.
Thank you, Vinny.
From Naples, by the way.
Soccer champs, right? At the same time, they won the soccer championship.
Italy did, yes.
Italy, right.
Team Italy,
yeah.
which they were still celebrating.
Right.
All the flags were out and everything like that.
Might be a sign.
Could be.
Bringing the championship here to the city.
That's right. That's right. I think the Raiders would take a spot in the playoffs and then take their chances there. But hey, if the right things happen.
Stay healthy. Everybody does their job. You never know.
We'll check you guys out next week. This is a weekly show. Thank you for joining us on the Power Hour version of In the Huddle. Thanks to Old School Pizzeria for hosting us. It's getting ready to be lunchtime here pretty soon, and it is smelling like it. And thanks obviously to Demon Rum and Embajador Tequila.
What restaurant this one?
Exactly. And TAT, of course, they do a great job. All three sponsoring the show.
Bringing the show together.
We truly appreciate it.